When I first retired, I thought the hard part would be figuring out how to fill my time. What I did not expect was how hard it would be to let go of the things I no longer needed, not just the routines or the responsibilities, but the actual things, the objects, the stuff I kept around because it used to mean something. Things from my working life, from the busy years, from a version of myself I had slowly started to outgrow. And yet, there they sat, stacked in drawers, hanging in closets, collecting dust in corners of the garage. Maybe you know what I mean. Maybe you have a jacket you have not worn in years, or a drawer full of office supplies, just in case, or tools you no longer use, but still keep, because they feel like a part of you. In this video, I want to talk about 8 things that many of us hold on to after retirement, even though we no longer need them. Not to judge, not to tell you what to throw away, but to gently ask, what are you still holding on to? And is it time to let it go? Thing number 1, old work clothes. After I retired, one of the first things I noticed, though I did not admit it right away, was how full my closet still was. Suits, ties, dress shirts, work shoes, my uniform for 35 years. I used to wear those clothes every day without thinking. They made me feel sharp, professional, respected. But once I stopped going to the office, they just sat there. And I left them there, for years. At first, I told myself I might need them. What if I get invited to something formal? Or maybe I will do some consulting, and I will want to dress properly. But time went on, and those occasions never came. Still, I could not bring myself to pack them up. They were more than clothes. They were reminders of who I was and what I gave my time and energy to for most of my adult life. But slowly, I started to ask myself, do these clothes still fit the man I am now? Not physically, though some definitely did not, but emotionally. Do they reflect how I live today? These days, my days are slower, more relaxed. I take morning walks in soft flannel shirts and sneakers. I read the newspaper on the porch in comfortable clothes, not button-downs and polished shoes. The truth is, I no longer needed those old work clothes. And keeping them around only made me feel stuck in a version of myself that no longer existed. I realized I could let them go without letting go of the memories or the pride I felt in my career. So, I kept one suit. The one I wore to my daughter's wedding? It still fits, and it reminds me of a beautiful day. The rest? I donated them to a local charity that helps people find jobs. Maybe those clothes will help someone else feel confident, just like I once did. Letting go of old work clothes is not about saying goodbye to who you were. It is about making space for who you are now and who you are still becoming. Your value does not live in a blazer or necktie. It lives in your heart, your story, and your presence. And that, my friend, needs no uniform. Thing number 2, business cards and office supplies. For a long time, I kept a small leather case in my desk drawer, filled with business cards, mine and dozens of others. Cards from past colleagues, clients, conferences, people I had not spoken to in decades. Each one had a job title, a company logo, and a memory attached. But the truth was, I had no reason to keep them anymore. Even so, I hesitated. Those cards represented a time when I was active in my field, when people knew my name and reached out to me for advice or partnerships. Flipping through them felt like flipping through an old yearbook, a quiet reminder that I once mattered in a fast-paced world. The same went for my collection of office supplies: staplers, highlighters, branded notepads, folders, things I had stockpiled during my working years. In retirement, I hardly used any of them. Still, they sat in drawers and boxes, as if I might be called back into service at any moment. But here is what I realized. I am not that role anymore. I am not my title. I am not my business card. And I do not need a drawer full of office supplies to prove that I once worked hard and built a name for myself. Letting go of those things did not erase my impact. It made room for what matters now. Writing letters to my grandchildren, journaling, making grocery lists, and maybe the occasional crossword puzzle. I kept a few pens I liked and a small notepad. The rest I gave away. Retirement is not just a time to rest. It is a time to release, to clear out the things that belong to a version of you that you have already honored. Because you do not need a business card anymore to be remembered. The people who truly matter already know your name. Thing number 3, unused tools and equipment. My garage used to look like a hardware store. Power drills, sanders, ladders, boxes of nails and screws. I kept every tool I ever bought, even ones I had not used in over 10 years. Part of me held onto them out of habit. Part of me held onto them out of pride. You see, I used to fix everything myself. Plumbing, shelves, fences, anything that broke. I was on it. There was a satisfaction in knowing I could handle whatever came up. But over time, I started doing less and calling for help more. Not because I did not know how, but because I knew when to rest. My body began giving me signals. Knees that creaked, hands that stiffened, back muscles that reminded me they were not 20 years old anymore. And yet, the tools remained, gathering dust, taking up space, until one day I opened the cabinet to find a wrench I needed, and I realized I could not even remember what half the other tools were for. That was the moment I started sorting. I kept the basics, the screwdriver set, a small hammer, a flashlight. The rest, I boxed up. I gave some to my grandson. Some went to a neighbor who still loves weekend projects. A few I donated to a local community center where young folks learn how to fix things. Letting go of those tools did not make me less of a man. In fact, it reminded me of how much I had already done. Every nail I hammered, every chair I repaired, every job I finished was still a part of my story. I did not need the tools to prove that. We all hold on to things because they represent who we were. But when they stop serving who we are now, it is okay to let them go. You are not giving up your skills or your memories. You are simply making space for today, and today you deserve ease, not clutter. Thing number 4, filing cabinets full of old papers. I had this metal filing cabinet that sat quietly in the corner of my home office. 3 drawers stuffed to the brim. Tax documents, insurance forms, medical papers, manuals from old appliances, bank statements going back to the 1980s. It had not been opened properly in years, but I always told myself, I might need something in there someday. We all say that, do we not? When I finally decided to clean it out, I thought I would just skim through it. I ended up sitting there for hours, reading papers I had not looked at in decades. Some of them made me smile, like the receipt for the first house my wife and I bought, or the welcome letter from the company I worked at for over 30 years. But most of it, well, it was just paper, faded, outdated, forgotten. So why was I still holding on to it all? Because sometimes the paper is not just paper. It is proof that we lived, that we paid our dues, that we were responsible and capable. It is hard to throw that away. It feels like discarding pieces of ourselves. But here is what I learned. The memories are not in the paper. They are in me. They are in the stories I tell my children. They are in the way I still remember the layout of that first home. They are in my voice, not in a manila folder buried in a drawer. And most of the important papers? They have digital versions now. The IRS only needs 7 years of tax records. Old warranties expire. Manuals are online. What was once essential is now just taking up space. So I made a new rule for myself. If I had not touched it in 5 years and it was not legally or emotionally important, it went. I shredded a lot, kept a little, labeled what I needed. And for the first time in a long time, that corner of my home office felt light again. It is amazing how much mental space you free up when you let go of the physical clutter. It is like breathing easier, not just in the room, but in your head. You do not need a cabinet full of old paper to prove that you have lived a full and responsible life. The people who know you, the ones who love you, they already know. Thing number 5. Backup kitchen appliances. I had not noticed how many backup kitchen gadgets I had until one of my grandkids opened the lower cabinet and said, "Grandpa, do you run a restaurant?" I laughed, but then I looked. 3 coffee makers, 2 blenders, a rice cooker I never used, an electric carving knife still in the box from 1995. I had mixers, juicers, even a second toaster, just in case the first one broke. It is funny how those things build up over time. One purchase here, a gift there, something saved from an old house. We tell ourselves, better to have an extra than to need it one day. And for a while that made sense. When you have a big family or host a lot of holidays, you want to be prepared. But now, I live a quieter life. I make 1 cup of coffee in the morning, maybe scramble some eggs, maybe not. I bake occasionally. I do not need 3 appliances for the same job, and I certainly do not need tools for meals I no longer cook. Still, parting with those gadgets felt strange. Some of them had stories, like the bread machine I used when my wife and I tried making sourdough during one snowy winter, or the fondue pot we brought out one New Year's Eve with friends. It is not just the object. It is what it reminds us of. But what I learned is this: you can keep the memory without keeping the machine. So I took a Saturday and made 3 piles. 1 for what I use every week, 1 for what I use a few times a year, and 1 for what I had not touched in years. That last pile? I donated it all. A single mom at church was thrilled to take some of it. A neighbor was starting his first apartment. He gratefully accepted the blender. And me? I opened up space in my kitchen. Now, when I open a drawer or a cabinet, I do not have to dig or shuffle. Everything I see, I use. Everything I use, I appreciate. It is amazing how something as simple as clearing out an extra toaster can bring peace of mind. In retirement, less really is more. More space, more clarity, more calm. And if I ever need another coffee maker, well, maybe that is the universe's way of telling me to drink tea. Thing number 6, career-related books and manuals. I used to have an entire bookshelf dedicated to my career. Leadership guides, business strategy books, thick technical manuals, training binders, and stacks of reports I had once written or contributed to. Some of those books were gifted to me by colleagues. Others I had purchased during conferences or work retreats. Many of them still had sticky notes sticking out from the top or underlined paragraphs I once considered life-changing. After retirement, I did not touch them, not once, but I kept them anyway. At first, I told myself they might come in handy, that I might consult again, or maybe mentor someone, or just reread for the wisdom. But deep down, I knew why I was really keeping them. Those books represented a time when my mind was sharp, my days were full, and I felt necessary. I had built something, a career, a reputation, a sense of purpose. Letting go of those books felt like letting go of that identity. But slowly, something shifted. One afternoon, I sat in front of that shelf and looked at it differently. I saw dust. I saw titles that were no longer relevant to the world we live in now. I saw knowledge that, honestly, no longer applied to the life I was living today. Then I asked myself a question. Do these books reflect who I am now? Not really. Today, I am not leading meetings or preparing presentations. I am leading a different kind of life, one that values presence over productivity, peace over pressure. I am learning how to slow down, not speed up. I am more interested in writing a birthday card to my granddaughter than reading another chapter about quarterly performance metrics. And here is the truth. I do not need those books anymore to feel wise. I do not need a shelf of industry terms to remind me I once made an impact. I did, and I still do, just in different ways now. So, I went through the shelf. I kept a few that still spoke to me, books that inspired, not pressured, the ones that made me feel connected to people, not just processes. The rest? I donated them to the local library or passed them on to younger professionals who might still find them useful. Now that shelf holds different things. A book of poetry, a journal, a photo album, a few novels I never had time to read while I was working full-time. That shelf, just like me, has been repurposed, not erased, not emptied, just redirected. Letting go of career books is not a rejection of who you were. It is a recognition that life has seasons. Your work mattered. It shaped you. It provided for your family. And now you are in a new chapter, one that deserves just as much space, attention, and care. You are not just a former title or a former role. You are still growing, still learning, still living. And that is worth clearing the shelf for. Thing number 7, physical planners and wall calendars. Back when I was working, my days were built around calendars. Every morning, I would look at my planner, check my meetings, appointments, calls, to-do lists. My wall calendar at home had color-coded markings, deadlines, birthdays, project due dates. It gave me structure. It made me feel in control. After I retired, I kept the same habits. At least I tried to. I still bought a big desk planner every year and hung a fresh calendar on the wall each January. I filled in doctor's appointments, family visits, maybe a grocery day or two. But something felt different. My days were no longer packed, and honestly, I liked that. Still, I found myself holding on to those planners, even when I barely used them, even when whole months stayed blank. It was almost like I was afraid of letting go of that structure, afraid that if I did not plan every hour, I might start drifting or losing my sense of purpose. But what I have learned is that retirement brings a different rhythm. It is not about being less useful or less organized. It is about living on your own terms. Some days are full, others are quiet, and both are okay. I remember sitting down one afternoon, flipping through my old planners. I saw pages full of notes, tight schedules, and scribbled reminders from years past. And then I looked at my current one, mostly empty. Not because I was doing nothing, but because I was finally giving myself permission to live without a clock ruling every moment. That was the moment I realized I no longer needed to cling to planning like a lifeline. I could still keep a small notebook for important dates or reminders, but I did not need a planner that treated each day like a checklist. Life now is more about flow than deadlines, so I took down the oversized calendar. I let go of the unused planners. I replaced them with something simpler, a small weekly notepad I keep by the phone. It reminds me of birthdays and doctor visits, but it does not demand my time. It does not ask me to fill every hour. The freedom to wake up and ask, what do I feel like doing today? That is a gift, and it is one I did not fully embrace until I let go of the idea that productivity is the same as purpose. You have earned this slower pace. You have earned the right to live without a rigid schedule. You are not being lazy. You are being intentional. You are choosing how you spend your time, not letting your time be spent for you. The calendar on the wall once helped you stay on track. Now, maybe it is time to listen to your own inner rhythm instead. Thing number 8, unspoken obligations. This last one is not something you can hold in your hand, but it might weigh more than any object in your house. After I retired, I thought I would finally have the freedom to choose how I spent my time, and in many ways I did. But I also found myself saying yes to a lot of things I did not really want to do anymore. I stayed on 3 volunteer committees, led a local board I was no longer excited about, and kept attending weekly meetings that had started to feel more like routines than meaningful gatherings. Why? Because I felt like I should. I felt like I owed it to the community. I felt like if I stopped showing up, I would disappoint someone, or worse, feel useless. These responsibilities were not written down anywhere. No one forced me to stay involved, but I carried them around just the same. Quiet obligations, unspoken expectations. And it took me a long time to realize that obligation is not the same as purpose. Just because you can do something does not mean you have to, and just because something was once meaningful does not mean it still serves your life today. The turning point for me came when I missed a meeting, not because I forgot, but because I simply did not want to go. I spent that hour sitting on my back porch with a cup of tea, listening to the birds, feeling more at peace than I had in weeks. I thought, if I feel this relieved not doing it, maybe that is the answer I have been avoiding. After that, I started to step back, slowly, respectfully. I thanked the people I had worked with. I explained that I was entering a new season, one where I wanted to focus more on presence than pressure. And you know what? No one was upset. In fact, a few of them said, "I wish I had the courage to do the same." It is easy to feel guilty when stepping away from things we once gave our time and energy to. But you are not abandoning anyone. You are honoring yourself. And that matters. Retirement is not just about having more time. It is about having more choice. You get to decide what you give your energy to. You get to ask yourself, does this bring me joy, peace, purpose? And if the answer is no, it is okay to let it go. You have spent your life being dependable, showing up, carrying more than your share. Now it is your turn to choose rest without guilt, to choose peace without apology. Some obligations were meant for a different chapter, and closing that chapter does not mean the story ends. It means you are finally free to write a new one. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is not something most of us were taught to do well. We were taught how to hold on to jobs, to titles, to routines, to things. We were taught that being responsible meant being prepared, having backup plans, keeping everything just in case. But now, in this season of life, letting go takes on a new meaning. It is not about forgetting the past. It is not about throwing things away. It is about creating space, not just in our homes, but in our hearts, for what matters now. Each thing you release is not a loss. It is an invitation to breathe deeper, to live lighter, to move freely. It is a way of saying to yourself, I've done enough. I've earned the right to choose differently now. Whether it is a suit you no longer wear, a shelf of books you no longer read, or a sense of obligation that no longer brings you joy, it is okay to let it go. And in doing so, you are not giving up who you were. You are making more room for who you are still becoming. So today, I hope you feel encouraged, not to clean everything out at once, but to look around with kindness, to ask yourself, does this still serve me? Or am I carrying it out of habit? Start small. One drawer, one item, one quiet yes to more freedom. And remember, you are not alone in this. We are all learning how to live more gently, more meaningfully, and more honestly with where we are now. Thank you for spending this time with me. If something in this video resonated with you, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Or just say hello. This space is for connection. Take care of yourself. You have not outlived your purpose. You are simply entering a chapter that deserves more space to breathe. Let it be light. let it be yours.